Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
This is Bill Krause. Good morning. A good Thursday morning to you on a beautiful day, and we are so delighted to have with us a young lady who I've known for a number of years, but she recently accepted a position as president and CEO of the United Way of South Central Tennessee, and we'll learn about the new name, Kristen Swann. I got to get that right. Swann, did I do you right?
Swann, absolutely.
All right, we always like to ask our guests initially, and I'm sure lots of people out in Rutherford County already know you, but tell us about you. Born where, schooled where, lived where?
Sure. So I'm from Mississippi originally.
What part?
I'm from the Jackson area, so
Okay.
Clinton, Mississippi. And I went to Mississippi State University for undergrad, and I actually got a master's degree at MTSU, which is how I ended up in Murfreesboro.
What field were you in?
Mass communication.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so I have some family here and just really enjoyed the area. I met my husband here, and we just stayed. So there you go.
And
That's
you
my
have
life story.
children?
I do. I have a daughter named Charlie. She's 19 months old now.
Oh, just a little one.
Yep, she's tiny, so she's it. She's really fun. So.
You bring her to work ever?
She was with me yesterday, actually. So
Absolutely.
she's our little mascot at work. I think everybody loves her. So.
And you began with United Way?
Well, I actually started with United Way in 2010, and was there for about 4 years, and then I left. I worked for the Chamber of Commerce for a little bit and did a couple.
Same building?
Well, no, we actually, when I started United Way, we were in the First Bank building, which is on Memorial. So, yeah, there was some crossover. When I went to the Chamber, then they followed me. That's what happened. Yeah.
They said, come back.
Yeah, so I did a couple other jobs in between that, and then I ended up coming back in 2018. So in total, I've been with United Way for almost 10 years now.
And effective last April is when you became president and CEO.
Yeah.
Talk about the name change, because for so long it was United Way of Rutherford and Cannon County.
That's right.
And
that's
now you
South Central.
broader world, and that's a wide universe.
It is.
But how did the change occur and reasons why?
So about a year ago, we merged with Bedford and Lincoln counties, and so they had kind of approached us about joining forces and, just kind of becoming one United Way. That's really a national trend for kind of smaller United Ways to merge with larger ones. And so we became the United Way of Rutherford, Cannon, Bedford, and Lincoln, and obviously that's too long, so we had to petition to United Way Worldwide for a new name. And we are now the United Way of South Central Tennessee.
See, I was thinking you mentioned it'd be a long letterhead with a name, but
4
it would
days,
even be longer for somebody who answers the telephone. Good morning, this is United Way of Rutherford County, Cannon County, Bedford County. Hey, I just ran through 10 minutes of my phone call.
Exactly, yeah. That'd be a little much, so, yeah.
Talk about, and this is just kind of basic foundation, but talk about the basis of United Way, its purpose, its mission, some of its specific outreaches in our four-county area.
Yeah, so I really see United Way as a convener, a collaborator, a solutions finder. We do a lot of different things, and I think that's one of the things that people don't always know about us is that we do give grants. That's one of the things that people know the most about us. We have over 30 partners that we fund through grants this fiscal year. But we also are really trying to understand what are the biggest needs in our community and how can we help fill those gaps. So in addition to that funding, we provide internal programs. We have started doing collaborative grants to help nonprofits work together more. So really we're just, we've become more involved with the continuum of care, which I know you know a lot about. Really just looking at what are the needs, how can we fill the gaps, how can we serve where services are not being provided.
Do you have I'm numbers many times, do you have a statistic of roughly how many people you directly or indirectly served this last year?
Wow, what a great question. It's in the hundreds of thousands for sure. Absolutely.
I mean, people may not even realize that a service they're receiving has been either funded or collaborated through the United Way.
That's right.
And, give us some specific examples
Sure.
of some of the services that are being provided through your certainly great organization.
Yeah, I mean, there's really too many to count, but some of the ones that I am, most proud of, I guess, are collaborations within different agencies. So for the second year, we're funding a collaboration between Stepping Stones, Cold Patrol, and Salvation Army. So they're helping folks if the police department identifies someone who's experiencing homelessness, especially outside of business hours. They're using United Way funding to help provide a temporary solution with a hotel or motel until they can get someone to shelter and then hopefully to a permanent solution long term. And so they really identified, this is a need that's not being met. If someone comes across someone that's experiencing homelessness at, 1 o'clock in the morning, the police department does, they don't really have a solution, right? Because a lot of these places are open during business hours. So that's one that's a really great example of collaboration in those three agencies.
You've actually taken that great significant responsibility that Hark used to be involved in.
That's right.
And when you mentioned Cold Patrol, and this is kind of an interesting term after just having the hot weather this last week.
That's right.
But when the temperature went below 32 degrees in Rutherford County, people who were homeless were taken to one of two facilities for bedding and for food, hot food, and so forth. You begin to think of the less fortunate people in our community, and there are less fortunate people for many reasons, either sometimes wrong decisions and other times decisions beyond their control. And the query becomes, do we provide a safety net for people who are less fortunate? In terms of other services besides the, for example, responding immediately to the homelessness, what about in terms of emergency services to people, in terms of food, in terms of health? What are some of the specifics that
so this year we are funding a collaborative with Second Harvest, where they are working directly with the school systems to provide meals for students to send home with them. So that's one example of the food that you're asking. Primary Care and Hope is one of our grant recipients through, providing health care. But one of our other big focuses, which was we felt an unmet need, especially coming out of the pandemic, is mental health. And so we have quite a few partners that are providing services specifically in the school systems for mental health services for students. And so we've partnered with Murfreesboro City Schools to give them a grant, with Centerstone, STARS, and then also some funding of their own to provide mental health services to students in Murfreesboro City Schools.
As you get talking, you literally give me the knowledge and awareness, and I'm sure many of our listeners, that you're an umbrella agency that not only you may or may not provide these services directly, but you provide the funding to so many of the nonprofits in Rutherford County and surrounding areas that they carry out the specific mission, their specific task. And, when you mention homeless, and I think of Journey Home, I think of Greenhouse Ministries, and I think of, so many of them. One doesn't realize how many nonprofits are in our community, everything from A to Z. And these are people with a great amount of volunteerism, boards and volunteers who give tremendous amount of time and effort to help other people. And this is a very helping community. And I think that's why United Way here has been so successful, because it's tapped into the ability to help people in need. How about seniors? Do you have outreach to seniors?
We love our seniors, absolutely. Our VITA program, our Volunteer Income Tax Assistance program, we typically do see a lot of folks that fall into that category. So if a household is earning $76,000 or less annually, they qualify for free tax assistance. So that's a service that we provide.
76,000.
I know, right? It's funny because I know when I first started United Way, that number was much lower. It's gone up every year, but we do have a lot of seniors that take advantage of that program. So yeah.
And you're located?
We are located at the Chamber of Commerce, so 3050 Medical Center Parkway.
Second floor?
Second floor. That's right.
I do remember that.
That's us. Yep.
Staff? How large of staff?
I think we are up to 19 staff. And I think that's one of those kind of misconceptions, right?
Sure.
We have, some folks that are kind of dedicated to fundraising, but a bulk of our staff is now kind of direct service providers. We have a program called Launch Point now that's really focusing on working families. And so that's one of those kind of, I wouldn't say unmet needs, but just areas of our community where folks that are working but are still not able to live at the true cost of living and are struggling paycheck to paycheck, they aren't able to access as many resources, so they don't qualify for state or federal benefits. They're often working and earning too much to qualify for those benefits.
But
and
not
then,
enough to survive.
Yeah, and so that's actually a pretty large portion of our community, and so that is one of our biggest focuses is how do we help working families. So we have a fairly large program that is looking at, not only how can we kind of stop a crisis, so if something does happen, how can we kind of put a Band-Aid on it, but then what are the next steps to get them to long-term stability.
Do you also do education of how to shop? For example, you go into a grocery store, you buy what your taste want, or do you buy what your pocketbook can
Yeah,
pay
I mean,
for?
that's a great suggestion. I don't think we've done that yet. And I know a lot of families are struggling, and that's definitely one of those expenses that's, we could look at. So.
You know what's rather interesting with United Way and AMI, any organization, nonprofit that helps people. First, you were in the pandemic, and the several years of the pandemic dealing with that crisis. And now in the last 4 years, we've had inflation and the ability to live within just normal means. Although I found it interesting the last, 2 weeks, how gas prices have come down.
Yeah.
I'm seeing $2.78, 79
That's exciting.
prices. And
Something
I'm
to
thinking,
celebrate.
well, and I'm thinking 50 cents a gallon saving, that's $7, $8 that you can go out and buy lunch and maybe something else.
Yeah.
So as your staff in 19 plus or minus, they basically are making sure that the wheels of funding, both money in and the wheels of funding, money out through grants, go to the organizations that provide the feet and arms of people who are carrying out the particular tasks. You work closely with both school districts, Rutherford County, as
We
well
do.
as city schools here in Murfreesboro. Do you also involve in terms, you mentioned the housing and homeless, other emergency cares, or does that work closely with the Red Cross, for example? A fire may destroy a home and you have people without a house.
Right. Typically, when there is an emergency, like a tornado or something like that, we do partner with the Red Cross primarily.
So you deal with John.
Yeah,
I mean,
we love John.
You know the men and women that are in all these nonprofits, and I had the personal pleasure several years ago to work with many of them. Rutherford County, and I can't speak for the neighboring counties, but Rutherford County, people don't realize there are so many good people in this area. I don't say that lightly. I don't say, well, it's a nice thing to say on a Thursday morning. I go much further. The number of men and women, all ages, all backgrounds, all groups, and what have you, the hours they put in to volunteer service. And this county would not be so great if you didn't have these volunteers. Does United Way get into the volunteer itself? You have a board of 28 men and women?
Yeah, we have a board. We have, I think, 5 or 6 standing committees. And we also have a service called Volunteer Connect that's not only volunteer opportunities for United Way, but for other nonprofit agencies. So if you have a nonprofit, if you're involved with a nonprofit and you're not on Volunteer Connect, it's a great way for you to post opportunities and then volunteers to kind of sign up. We were talking to MTSU students about that yesterday, about how they can sign up to volunteer. So that's a great service that we have through a partnership with Volunteer State Bank. So
You work closely with MTSU in many areas?
we do, yeah. So MTSU is one of our top 10 donors every year. We are Ann Campbell Early Learning Center is one of our grant recipients, and we really just try to do as much partnership outreach. I'll be on campus in a couple weeks at a class. We always have interns. We try to have as good a connection as we can.
You ought to be at a football game and
Yeah.
rally the troops.
That's right. That's right.
We're having a visit this Thursday morning with the president and CEO of the United Way of South Central Tennessee. That's a new phrase for me to get involved in, but it sounds great. Sounds great. Is it initial yet? Do you have UWSCT?
Yeah, UWSCTN is what we're
Oh, wow.
going with.
You're almost getting a long letter here.
I know.
Kristen Swann, the president CEO, and we'll be right back.
Support First Shot at Autumn at the Alley. It will be held at Saddle Woods Farm on Franklin Road in Murfreesboro on Wednesday, September 25th from 6 until 9 p.m. It supports First Shot STEM Academy and Academic All-Stars initiatives. The night is a fantastic event with unique tastings from various spirit brands and great wines and food from the Alley on Main. Top the night off with a fabulous silent auction. Go to firstshotTN.org for more information and see you at Autumn at the Alley September 25th.
As a leader in environmental services, sustainability is deeply integrated into our business model. At Middle Point Landfill, we are environmentalists at heart. We use a cutting-edge technology in combination with our deep experience in recycling and waste services to protect our environment and our neighbors. That's our job, and that's our promise. This is Mike Klassen with Middle Point Landfill. We invite you to learn more about us at middlepointlandfill.com. For public services, we are sustainability in action.
Fellas, if you've noticed a lack of energy, motivation, and drive, it could be low testosterone. Don't wait. Get checked by the experts at Low T Center. They have over a decade of experience helping patients achieve life-changing results with testosterone therapy, or TRT. And for established patients, they offer the convenience of physician-monitored at-home TRT with advanced personalized plans that include both lab testing and self-inject medication. Low T Center makes it easy, shipping directly to your door. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment online. Low T Center, reinventing men's health care.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
I've got pests, bees, buzzing, rodents running all through my house. Ants chewing wood, and look, there's a mouse. I'm overrun with pests, but you're gonna be sure, safe and secure. It's the last rites for those pests. Call the best of the best to get rid of your pests.
893-7111. AmeriCare Services Incorporated. Call us today. 893-7111.
Let's check the WGNS Good Neighbor events. A tribute to Queen at the Art Center of Cannon County at 7 o'clock Saturday night. The 37th Annual Pioneer Power Days is in Eagleville this Friday and Saturday. It features an antique tractor and engine show, along with an antique tractor pull both nights. Don't miss the annual Pioneer Power Days this weekend in Eagleville at 747 Chapel Hill Pike. Now listen closely. This Friday and Saturday brings Uncle Dave Macon Day's Roots Rendezvous Music Festival to Hop Springs. That's at 6790 the John Bragg Highway. The only admission is a parking fee of $10 per car, and everyone in the car is admitted free. The festival begins at 4 o'clock Friday and 11 o'clock Saturday morning until the wee small hours on Sunday. Don't forget the Adventures in Learning is back. It starts Monday, September the 11th at First United Methodist Church. Live in the borough benefiting Greenhouse Ministries. That's next Tuesday at MTSU. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
We'll see sunny skies here this afternoon with a high in the low 90s. For tonight, mostly clear with a low near 65. Friday, sunshine high of 91 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 75.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Hello again, Bill Krause on the WGNS Roundtable Thursday morning special on a day that's starting to feel like fall may be flirting around the corner. You know, I don't know about all of you. I guess if I would have picked my least favorite season, it probably would be summer. Summer has a lot of good events, a lot of activity, but give me that fall air. Give me that rain that comes in. We're visiting this morning with the recently appointed president and CEO of the United Way of South Central Tennessee, Kristen Swann. And Kristen, you know, one of the things, a couple things, on the United Way, you have to raise money. You have to raise money because it's only money provides the ability to provide the service to the needy. One of the most fascinating things about United Way, and this is how you can judge any nonprofit no matter what they do, is what percentage of their administrative costs reflect the total amount of money received and expended. And United Way does a super job. It keeps its overhead administrative costs down to the minimal, just to ensure efficiency and effectiveness with a vast amount of the resources it creates and develops and implements to go to services that are so needed. You have an event coming up in next month, October. What is that?
So we have our third annual Give United. It's October 22nd through 24th. And it's really just an opportunity for people to give online. We started it 3 years ago when Megan was with us, and she started this outreach for people to kind of give online, people who don't give through their workplace. It's really just an opportunity for people to give outside of the normal streams. So it's 3 days of giving. It's really a digital, mostly a digital campaign, and we're excited. So.
And how do they approach it?
Yeah, so will be on social media. It'll be on our website, email marketing, text message marketing. I'm sure if you're involved with United Way, you will hear about it October 22nd through 24th.
And it's interesting, and I never can assume anything that people know everything and all things, but some things. But it's important to realize, and it's not the reason you would make contributions to United Way or any other nonprofit, but it also is a significant tax benefit, tax deduction. So every time you make a contribution to an organization like United Way, you can deduct that amount of money from your federal income tax, and that saves you taxes, saves you amount. In fact, most people don't realize the amount of charitable contributions that are made in this country go in the billions and billions and billions. We're a very giving country. We don't realize we can talk about our problems, we can talk about our issues, but one of the many, many, many strengths of America is we're a very giving community. And United Way somewhat reflects that givingness. You also do fundraising, or you're going out to MTSU, I think you mentioned.
Yeah, so we do fundraising within different workplaces. That's a big thing that happens in the fall. So some of our top 10 campaigns are Nissan, Publix, MTSU is a great supporter, Yates Services, which is within Nissan. Lots of different, the Rutherford County School Systems does a great campaign. Just there's so many people that support us, and a lot of people do it year round now, but we do have a lot of folks that kind of have a concerted effort in the fall to get folks to give and kind of rally around the cause.
And the interesting thing doing it in the fall is you're doing it as people start to begin to think of their tax preparation for the end of the calendar year, 2024, and right before you have all the expenses of Christmas.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I always say, give your Christmas gift early to your favorite nonprofit.
Yes, we're grateful for every gift.
And in other services that we talk about, kind of go through some other, well, maybe let's take it this way. Some of the nonprofits that you have partnerships with.
Sure.
Who are some of them? And we know probably most of them in the Rutherford County area, but off the top of your head, and I have to share this with you all, these interviews, these visits we have on Thursday morning WGNS Roundtable are not scripted. We don't have pre-conditioned questions. We don't specifically say, okay, study the questions and prepare your answers. This is totally a conversation. I don't call it an interview. It's a visit with Kristen, and I've known her now since almost, actually, you went 2018 back, and I joined Hark in the latter part of 2018. So this has been a 6-year friendship. So it's basically, off the top of our head, what are some of the questions? What are some of the interesting things? I would like to know some of your partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. So Salvation Army is one, Stepping Stones, Cold Patrol. Like I said, those 3 are in a collaborative grant they're receiving. Kamari House, Second Harvest is receiving a grant this year. Journey Home. Goodness, I don't know if I can list them all. STARS, which is students taking a right stand, and they have a mental health program within the schools that we help fund. Yeah, there's a lot of great partners. Primary Care and Hope Clinic.
Do you receive federal funding?
We do, yeah. So I will say we receive federal funding on a state level. So
Comes through the state.
yes, yeah, we receive TANF funds for the Launch Point program specifically. We also, because we have taken on the partnership with the Continuum of Care, we'll receive some funds from HUD for that. But yeah, I mean, those are probably the biggest two. We also receive quite a few grants from private foundations, as well as corporate partners, a lot of corporate gifts. And it's been interesting to see the shift within the business community of looking at, this is an issue that's important to us. Like Nissan, for example, wanted to give us a grant for education specifically.
What kind of education were they looking for?
Really,
dealing
just
with their facility,
really anything. Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
they're just very focused on education, and so we have a program called Born Learning, which is a program that educates parents to be their child's first teacher. So early childhood education, like knowing what milestones are, knowing what things to look for. And so they're funding that. We have a partnership with Redstone Federal Credit Union to provide some software that we use to track data. The Experience Community Church provides funding for Charity Tracker platform, so all the agencies can, kind of talk to each other and network that way. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways people get involved.
It's always been a question in nonprofits, and I had managed nonprofits for about 25 years, primarily in California, federal, national, state, and local. And the big question always was put to me, and I'm certainly put to everyone in the nonprofit leadership role. How do you evaluate success of your work? How do you figure out, okay, we're putting in this time, we're raising this money, we have partners, we're allocating. How do you know that you are very effective in changing, supporting, and turning the life of another human being?
Yeah, absolutely. So we collect data from our grant recipients as well as track data for our internal programs. And so we have kind of predetermined shared measurements. So just to give you an example, if we're looking at early childhood education, that's one of our focus areas. And we have grant recipients within early childhood education. So let's say Ann Campbell Early Learning Center and Nurture the Next and Nurses for Newborns. Those are 3 partners in that area. So they would look at, let's say, changes in attitudes, knowledge, and behavior within parents they're serving. So they may, do surveys within as they're serving folks. To see, did you learn something from this program? Have you made a change in your attitude or your knowledge or your behavior towards parenting your child? Things like that. So we have a lot of metrics that we're tracking. We also look at community level data, which is a little bit hard to show an attribution of work to change in community level data, but it's important, I think, to track, what is the kindergarten readiness rate, or what is the suicide rate? What is the drug overdose rate? What is the number of people living in our community that are cost burdened by housing? Those are some of the more community level pieces of data that we track to kind of guide our work as far as what do we need to continue to focus on? Is it getting better or is it getting worse? And where do we need to put our resources?
And I used to always measure, yes, with the metrics, yes, with the data, yes, with the numbers. I always remember, in fact, believe it or not, I did my doctoral dissertation on how you evaluate the success or failure of a nonprofit. And the question wasn't the numbers. And this was a social service center in a municipality in California that I was managing the municipality. And it was interesting that the traditional statistics of it was how many people came through the doors of the social service center in one year versus the next year. And the question was, well, does that mean that every year you've increased the number of people coming through the doors that made you more successful? And my conclusion was possibly not. It may be that the fewer people that come through your doors may be that you're solving the problem, or that you're not providing a service and they don't even try and contact you. But I always had, and this was kind of silly, but I always had this as an evaluation. If I see a genuine smile on a person who has succeeded breaking the cycle of poverty, or breaking the cycle of drug abuse, or breaking the cycle of alcoholism, breaking the cycle of financial limitations, and you'd see a smile. And when dealing with the homeless community a few years ago, when we saw a person break the cycle, they got a job, they got an apartment, they were looking forward to buying a car, and they were back in the main track, and they were smiling. Unfortunately, when we had COVID, nobody knew everybody's smile because we were wearing masks.
That's right.
And I think that's probably one of the greatest liabilities of the pandemic was we couldn't see the smiles. And I don't mean that lightly. I don't mean that lightly. If you're dealing with mental health, you know, are you seeing a smile in a person? So how do you, and because you are a coordinating agency, you are bringing resources from an upper level, federal government through the state, a level from thousands of people, corporates making contributions, and you are the bridge to the people on the street, on the turf, who are providing the service. Do you ever get these stories of people who have succeeded?
Yeah, absolutely. All the time. I think that's, you know, we have so many success stories. I think that's what helps you keep going when you hear, you know, stories of people who have made a change or made a difference in their life. That really helps. I think one that I heard recently that was really impactful was our Launch Point program. I was working with a single mom who wanted to kind of go in a different career path, and so they were able to help her take her, I believe it was CNA license, but it was some type of license for her to then be able to, you know, advance her career, and they were able to help her do that, and she did it, and you know, those are the types of stories that, you know, she did the work, but I think she just needed some support and some help, and those are the types of stories that I always like to hear when people tell me, because I think it just helps validate all of the hard work that's put in.
And you know, and this is kind of very much of a pragmatic idea, but if those stories can be shared with those people that write checks to contribute, whether it's an individual or corporate, you know, I think of two, and I never forgot these two. The owner of a series of McDonald's, initially Nashville and in the Rutherford County area. And he used to go to one of his stores, and there was a lady who was sitting there every morning drinking coffee. And she was homeless, but she spent the morning drinking coffee. He took the time, he sat down with her, got to know her. She had been a mother and a wife in a middle-class home. The family broke unexpectedly. The husband took off. She had never got job training. She had 3 children, and she just fell into the homeless slot. And he said, well, let me at least give you a job and help you along. He provided her a job. She initially began a counter service and ultimately worked to become a manager of one of his stores, and just did a great job. He took the time to see somebody who needed a helping hand, lifted his hand, and she has become successful. And I always like to point out, he's retired since, but there was a wonderful sergeant in the Murfreesboro Police Department, and he basically was generally the liaison dealing with the homeless community. And at that time, we had about 400 people that were classified in Rutherford County as living by the river, living on the street, and so forth. And he saw a lady who used to sit every day right by Linebaugh Library in a wheelchair. And he always made the point in his off-hour duties, on-hour duties as a sergeant, to visit with her. And he asked her about her life. And she was from Salt Lake City. How she got to Nashville, I don't know. Why she got to Nashville, we didn't know. But he talked to his counterpart in the Salt Lake City Police Department to ask for them to check up on her family, who she hadn't seen in years. To make a long story short, the sergeant in Salt Lake City reached out to the family. They had lost all knowledge and contact with her. And the final thing was, this sergeant in Murfreesboro took out of his pocket money to buy a Greyhound bus ticket to put this lady in a wheelchair on the bus back to Salt Lake City to reconnect with her family. That's what nonprofit management, that's what nonprofit volunteerism does. You see a story like that. It may not be thousands of stories, but you only have to see or hear one story to say, hey, I'm doing good. I'm creating A plus B equals C, and this is wonderful. When you talk about corporate giving, or you talk about deductions, have you seen a change in corporate donations that people as employees have a certain amount of money deducted from their paycheck? Has that been a change?
Yeah, we have seen a bit of a change in kind of how people give, and I think a lot of that is because the world is changing, right? So people do a lot more online giving. The days of kind of giving through payroll deduction are still there, and we still have folks that do that and support us that way, which is great. But we just have to think about, how is the world changing? How can we get people to support us? It's just the way of the future. So
this is going to sound like somebody who's a non-techie, which I am. I am a non-techie.
Yeah.
I guess age has a way of creating a non-techieology. A non-techieology. There's a
Yeah.
new word for you. But the question becomes, of course, online, you always worry about scams. And there are so many organizations, people, individuals that use online as totally a scam attraction, telephone scams and so forth. I'd like to turn over to something else to let your heart go out, Kristen. What is your vision and future? If you had a magic wand to make, quote, the world and life, never can use the word perfect. We're not perfect beings, but we try to strive to be near perfection. To have a vision of the United Way, now that you've been with it for 3.5, 4 months, what is your vision, not just of the organization, but the vision of what you see as the mission of your wonderful organization?
Yeah, I think we are, continuing to focus on what we feel like are the biggest pressing needs of our community, and one of those is helping working families. We have almost 50% of our community is living paycheck to paycheck.
Wow.
And so I think, when you think about Rutherford County, I think you think about opportunity, you think about, there are jobs, there are things like that, but there are still folks that are working, but the cost of living is too high. And so how do we find solutions to that? Because it feels like kind of an insurmountable issue, I guess. But thinking about job training, thinking about workforce development, thinking about, too, how can we stop a crisis before someone gets so far, into that crisis that it's hard to dig themselves out of that hole. So that's a big thing we see with folks is, financial education, making sure they know that there are options. Don't go to predatory lending. Don't go to places like that. Get your taxes done for free with VITA. There are just a lot of options. So having that financial coaching and education is something that we're really focusing on, and how we can support families that are working. There just aren't a lot of services that they can access. So we see that as a gap, and we see that as a really big part of our mission is helping the Alice community.
And you never relate things when you should. And when I teach, as I do quite a bit of it, I specifically say connect the dots. Say A plus B again, connect the dots. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're wondering whether there'll be enough money at the end of the month to pay the rent or provide the food for your children or pay for utilities, put gas in your car, etc., you literally know that if you're stressed out, it will lead to mental illness. And mental illness may not just pop up because it may have been genetically passed down, heaven forbid, but more specifically, it may literally be a cause and effect from how am I going to survive. And so they all connect with each other. And if you can help a situation with income management and expense management, you may suddenly respond or resolve to much of the mental illness that grows in this area. Stress can be a terrible, terrible thing if you have too much of it. It's kind of interesting. Do you also have, or through your partnerships, money management, where people know how to manage a budget?
We are currently providing a grant to Dominion Financial. They're one of our partners with the Launch Point program as well. And so that's kind of specifically how we're serving in that area. But as far as vision and, long term, we would love to expand that work and to have, more financial stability type services within the counties that we serve.
Have the banks been involved? There are
we
certain
have
banks within the area who are very outreach in mind, not just to bring in a customer to open up an account with them, but are very, very, very mindful of the need. What's interesting, when I do certain courses, college success at both Motlow and Columbia, and I have a lot of dual enrollment students, which are basically 16, 17-year-old high school students who are dual enrollment. And one of the things we ask them, If you're to start a budget, you're to begin a budget, what's the first thing you put on your expenses? And 99% will say rent or housing. I said, no. You start out 10%, even if you have a low income, 10% will pay yourself. Start saving yourself. Then build your budget on the net amount. So if you have a $2,000 a month take-home budget, put $200 a month away, one way or the other. I literally call it, without crossing over onto a religious feeling, I call it tithe yourself financially, as well as you may tithe yourself with the church. And then you build your budget with the net remaining. We'll be right back. We have to take a station break. We're with Kristen Swann, the president and CEO of the United Way of South Central Tennessee. I expect to see a drum roll with that.
Insurance should be simple, not complicated. That's why at Rayburn Insurance, Agent Rick Hull cuts through the jargon and helps you understand your options clearly. He's committed to finding the right coverage that fits your unique needs and budget. Their team has been a trusted partner in the community since 1973. Ready to make insurance easy? Get with Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency. He's ready to help you get the protection you deserve.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to health care. And that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE, 855-51-BIBLE.
At Bud's Tire Pros, we sell all major brands of tires, and we invite you to stop by today for that next set of tires. Or maybe you need us to check out your vehicle before you head out of town. We offer everything from brakes to batteries, alignments, and more. No appointments necessary. Just stop on by.
I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstirepros.tn.com.
Premier 6 Theater on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Let's all go to the movies.
Check out what's showing at murfreesboromovies.com. Popcorn popped fresh daily.
Movies at the good old
Premier 6 on Broad in Jackson Heights.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Hello again, Bill Krause in the WGNS Thursday morning edition of the Roundtable. And we are having a wonderful chat, visit with a young lady who is the president, recently appointed president and CEO of the United Way of South Central Tennessee. Note that I have to say it slowly because it's a whole new term for me, but it's a good term. It's a good term. Do you want to do a shout out to your officers and directors? Because they're volunteering great amount of time, great amount. I don't expect you necessarily from your memory to do all 28 names, and that would be a good quiz, but your executive committee and so forth, the leadership of the United Way.
Sure. So Casey Rainey with Raymond James is our board chair this year.
Investment and financial planning should be his forte.
Yeah.
And how even, no matter what your income, as low as may be, would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's our board chair, and then our incoming board chair is Ronald Roberts. He's with the communication firm. And then our policy and nominating chair is Lauren Harold. She is an HR professional, so she brings a lot of knowledge to that area. Our community impact chair is James Evans with the Rutherford County School System. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion chair is Dr. Gloria Bonner, who I'm sure you know.
Gloria!
Like
yeah.
everyone knows her.
Everybody knows Gloria.
Yes, she is that chair. Let's see. I don't want to miss anybody. Our development chair this year is Yolanda Green with First Horizon Bank, and I think that's everybody.
See, whenever one asks somebody for a list of names, there's always the potential of forgetting one.
Yeah.
And
and I did
Yes,
forget.
yes,
so our
yes,
finance chair is our
Important
treasurer.
vital role.
Yeah, it's Thomas Roddy with Ascension St. Thomas. He's their COO, I believe.
And your partnerships besides MTSU, and you mentioned a lot of non-profits, many of them that I know quite well from earlier years. Some of the majors, you have a partnership with Nissan.
Yeah, Nissan.
Talk about that, because Nissan being one of the largest employers in Rutherford County.
Yeah.
And Nissan, certainly, actually, Nissan's an interesting organization because the employees, are they actually employed by Nissan or a side company?
Some are. Some are employed directly by Nissan, and some are employed by Yates Services, which is a contractor, and so they also run a campaign. And they're both, I think they just wrapped that up, or they might still be doing it, but it's going on right now. And so they're great. They're great investors. Their leadership of their company is just so philanthropic and gives back quite a bit. So we're just grateful for them and everything they do.
You want to give telephone numbers or websites, addresses, and we want you to reach out to the folks out there listening, because this is a resource that, we're here for about an hour on this show, and I'm certainly not asking Kristen to give a full inventory of everything they do, because it'd be mind-boggling. It'd be mind-boggling of all what United Way does. And we just assume, we just accept it, we just acknowledge that it's an organization over there out in the Chamber building and the second floor with lovely people. I have to tell you, my experience with the entire staff, men and women of United Way, has been phenomenal. You have a super group of people. Well, you were super when I knew you as a staff member too, and I would always say to Megan, who served on our board at HARC, I said, Megan, how did you pick such caring people? And I think that would be the word to best describe it, as very caring. But how do people reach out to you?
So our phone number is 615-893-7303. But
one more time.
Slow it
so
down.
Run over and get a piece of paper.
That's
or if you're
right.
driving, put it. I don't know how you would write when you're driving. Please don't start writing if you're driving.
Please don't
on
do that.
I-24.
That's right. 615-893-7303 is our phone number. But I'll also tell you that our number, and it's easier to remember, 211. So if you call 211, it's our resource and referral line, and that's a national number. So anywhere you are in the country, if you call 211, you'll be connected with local resources for specific things that you need. One thing I always say, because I think it's important to kind of set expectations, is that it's not case management. They're not going to pay your electric bill if you call 211, but they will tell you kind of what some of the resources are in the community that you live in if you're experiencing a certain issue. And then we are located in the Chamber of Commerce building at second floor, and our website is your local.
It's out on Memorial
Medical Center.
I get my ends mixed up.
Yeah, we're
Center.
right off Interstate, so we have a great location.
A lot of parking.
It really is a great spot. And our website is yourlocaluw.org. Our social media, most of our handles are either Your Local UW or United Way of South Central Tennessee on Facebook.
Wow. But you always can find it. One of the areas that certainly nationwide, statewide, and certainly local-wide is the cost of housing. And housing has gone up dramatically. I own a significant portfolio of rental property. I bought it and rent it for a totally different purpose than the question of making money with it. The only income that I make from it is the equity building each month. Every time I make a mortgage payment, a little bit more of the property becomes me rather than the banks. Or I hope, because this is a growth area, that it appreciates. But the income versus expenses, I keep it down to a minimum to make rents affordable. It's my mission to work with people and provide housing at the, I can't say the least amount of money, but the minimum amount of money so that there isn't a profit drive in it. That's just my mission, and I thoroughly enjoy it. Find people who are in need, not in terms of underwritten housing, but housing that still is affordable for people. That becomes, quote, a principle of mine, and I've followed it last 3-4 years in Rutherford County, and it's been delightful because I see the smiles on the residents. Notice I don't call them tenants. I don't believe using the word tenant. They're residents. I don't call myself a landlord. I'm a home provider. And that words have a certain way of creating a mission and creating an expectation. So housing, United Way get into the housing crisis?
Yeah, so we the way that we look at affordable housing is really access to housing. So, for example, we provide a grant to legal aid because a lot of folks that find themselves not being able to access housing, it could be for a legal reason, it could be because of a previous eviction or a low credit score. So providing access to financial counseling and credit repair services is important. So I think you have to think about, when you think about any problem, we know that these complex problems don't have simple solutions, and they have lots and lots of different reasons why they're happening, right? There's not a silver bullet. There's not a, if we do this, it's going to fix everything. And so that's why I love United Way, because I think we're able to look a little bit more holistically of what's going on in the community, what resources are needed. And there's never enough. There's never enough resources. You talk to any nonprofit. Of course, we wish we could provide a grant to every nonprofit that asks us, but we just don't have those resources. But so to be able to look at what are the biggest needs, what's not being met, and how can we help, that's our mission, and that's what we do every day.
The big question to a nonprofit that serves people like Kristen has been sharing, if you had a magic wand, you would not need the nonprofit.
That's right.
You would close your doors
That's
and
right.
say, everybody is living fine, everybody's living good.
Yeah.
You don't need us
That's
anymore.
a good goal, I think, personally.
Yeah, you begin to think about that. And how about reaching out to, and a lot of people don't realize that we've had a growing new American population into Rutherford County. I was intrigued in my teaching how many people have emigrated here from Egypt. And there's an Egyptian community, and you're dealing with the schools and language, you're dealing with housing, you're dealing with cultural adaptation. How do you, quote, deal with the new American here who, basically has a need but doesn't know how to communicate that need?
So one of the services that one of the grants that we give is to Read to Succeed, and so they do adult literacy classes. I believe they do ESL. I don't want to misspeak, but they do help folks that, need help learning to read. And so that's one of the services that we help provide. The other thing that we do is in our Born Learning Academies, we provide them in both English and Spanish. And so that we can reach out to our Spanish-speaking families as well. And then the last thing I'll say is just, most of our resources we try to provide in multiple languages so that people can access what they need in their native language. And the other thing that we do is provide, translation services like at things like VITA and different programs like that. So I think it's important to make resources as accessible as possible.
I always tell my Egyptian friends, though, you don't mind a joke, and Egyptian friends, I said, senior citizens should not go to visit Egypt. And they become shocked. And why should I say that? Why should I say that?
Yeah.
I said, if a senior citizen goes to Egypt, they become senile. Okay, you don't have to laugh too loudly, folks. I may be corny, but the thing in the middle of your eye is cornea. So, final comments on United Way. What do you want to have people think, recall, remember about this morning's visit about the United Way of South Central Tennessee? And I'll get that name down to become perfectly within my mental capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just, one of the things that I say a lot is that really the complex problems that are facing our community don't have simple solutions. And that is where I see United Way making the biggest impact, is looking at, here are lots of different issues that we're trying to address. And so when you invest in United Way, you're kind of investing in that more systemic solution. And so that's what I want people to know about United Way, to think about United Way. You're right. We have a very caring staff, and we love for people to get involved with us through volunteering, serving on committees. I think that's the great thing about a local organization, is that you can come visit us anytime you want. You can kind of see our impact by getting involved with us, and that's what we want. That's what we want people to do.
And your web page has updates continually.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes, sir.
of what you're doing, what events and activities are coming up, and so forth.
Mhm.
Again, when you mentioned reaffirming the caring people,
Mhm.
I love to say that men and women basically who are in the staff as well as the
Mhm.
volunteer position of a nonprofit, including United Way,
Mhm.
they're not bureaucrats. They're not there to protect and preserve system. They're there to protect and preserve human beings.
Mhm.
And there's, a real key to that. So you may have to fill out applications. You may
Mhm.
have to fill out papers in a nonprofit or through the United Way,
Mhm.
but that's basically just to restore and maintain and account for the financing.
Yeah, that's right.
Kristen Swann, President, CEO, recently appointed last April, United Way of South Central Tennessee. We were so glad you were joining us this morning. Love to have you back on a frequent basis, bringing some of the people that specialize in
Absolutely.
particular programs. I'll send you some dates in the next 24 hours that they can become quote spokespersons for a particular segment. You're a vast organization, but you're a vast organization that cares about the individual. Thank you for coming.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you all next Thursday.